Kaimi walked away from the village, feeling the heavy weight of her decisions. Each step took her farther from the place where she had once hoped to rebuild her life. Now, all that remained were painful memories and regrets. The cold wind blew against her face, as if the world itself was mourning with her. She knew there was no turning back. The price she had paid for survival was too high, and the consequences of her actions were carved deep into her heart. Kaimi tried to console herself with the thought that at least she had escaped death, but this did little to ease the emptiness inside. Without the village, without her family, and without her dreams, the future seemed bleak and uncertain. As she walked, she thought about her mother, Asabi, and the choices that had been forced upon them both. Asabi had been strong and courageous, refusing to submit to the witches, even though she knew it would cost her life. Kaimi, on the other hand, felt weak for having given in to temptation. But at the same time, she knew that her desire to survive had been too powerful to ignore. Time passed, and Kaimi wandered from village to village, never finding a place to call home. No one knew her story, but she carried with her the burden of guilt and shame. In every village she passed through, the memories of Asala village and her mother never left her mind. The nights were long and lonely, and Kaimi often wondered if she would ever find peace. One night, as she rested by a river, Kaimi was surprised by a familiar presence. The old witch appeared once again, her expression even more sinister than before. Kaimi felt fear creep up her spine, but at the same time, there was something within her that was ready to face whatever came. "So the time has finally come," the witch said with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Did you think you could escape us, Kaimi? Did you think you could live your life without paying the price?" Kaimi, despite the fear she felt, lifted her head and responded, "I've already paid enough. I've lost everything. There's nothing left for you to take." The witch laughed, a sound that seemed to blend with the cold wind. "Ah, but you still don't understand. You still have something we want. Your life still belongs to us, Kaimi, and until you fulfill your destiny, there will be no peace for you." Kaimi looked at the witch with a mixture of anger and desperation. "What do you want from me? I've already given up my chance to have a family, to have children. What more can you demand?" The witch stepped closer, her eyes glowing in the dark. "We want your spirit, Kaimi. We want you to serve us, as your mother refused to do. Only then will your debt be paid." The witch's words hung in the air like a final sentence. Kaimi knew that if she accepted, she would lose everything that remained of her humanity. Becoming a servant of the witches meant giving up her very soul. But the fear of living forever haunted by guilt and pain tormented her. "No!" Kaimi screamed, her voice echoing through the darkness. "I won't surrender. I'd rather die than become like you." The witch's smile faded, replaced by a cold, cruel expression. "Then you have chosen your end, Kaimi. So be it." Suddenly, the witch disappeared, leaving Kaimi alone by the river. The full moon lit the sky, and the silence around her seemed to foreshadow something terrible. Kaimi felt her heart race, and for a moment, she thought she had escaped. But before she could relax, a sound began to echo through the wind. It was voices. Voices of all those who had suffered at the hands of the witches over the years. Voices of pain, regret, and anger. Kaimi realized that these voices were coming toward her, surrounding her, as if they had been waiting for this moment. She tried to run, but her legs were stuck to the ground, as though an invisible force was holding her in place. The voices grew louder, closer, until finally, a figure materialized before her. This time, it wasn't the witch, but her mother, Asabi, looking at her with sorrowful eyes. "Kaimi," Asabi said softly, her voice full of pain. "You followed a path I could not. But now, you must choose. Either you free yourself, or you join us in darkness forever." Kaimi, tears in her eyes, looked at her mother. "I don't know what to do, mother. I don't know how to escape this fate." Asabi reached out her hand to Kaimi, and in that moment, something inside her shifted. For the first time, Kaimi felt a lightness in her heart. Maybe, finally, there was a way out. She took her mother's hand, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in so long. The voices around her began to fade, and the night grew quieter. Kaimi knew in that instant that the final choice was hers. She could choose the light or the darkness, and for the first time, she decided to follow the path of light, even if it meant facing the consequences of her actions. With that decision, Kaimi disappeared into the night, leaving behind the life of pain, fear, and regret that had haunted her for so long. What happened to her afterward? No one knows. But they say that on nights of the full moon, the wind of Asala village still carries the sound of voices, whispering the tale of Kaimi and Asabi, and the price they paid for their freedom. After disappearing into the night, Kaimi's story became legend. The villagers of Asala whispered her name, telling tales of her rise and fall, warning their children of the dangers of making deals with forces beyond understanding. Some claim to have seen her wandering the forests on moonlit nights, a shadow of her former self, forever caught between light and darkness. Years passed, and the memory of Kaimi slowly faded. The village of Asala grew and prospered, but the air always seemed heavy with the weight of its past. The elders remembered the tragedies that had unfolded there, the unjust death of Asabi, the tragic fate of Kaimi, and the curse that seemed to linger over the village. No one dared to question the powers that had once ruled, for fear of awakening them again. Meanwhile, Kaimi wandered, never staying in one place for too long. She avoided the villages, preferring the solitude of the forests and the mountains, where the wind could carry her thoughts away. She no longer felt the same fear that had gripped her when she first encountered the witches. Instead, she felt a deep sadness, a longing for a life that could have been, if only she had made different choices. One night, as Kaimi sat by a quiet stream, she heard footsteps behind her. Startled, she turned to see a young girl, no older than she had been when her mother was taken from her. The girl had tears in her eyes and looked lost. Kaimi's heart softened. She hadn't spoken to another soul in so long, but there was something about the girl that reminded her of herself. "Why are you here?" Kaimi asked gently. The girl hesitated before answering, her voice trembling. "I'm running away." Kaimi's heart ached at the words. She had been running for so long too. "Why are you running?" The girl wiped her tears and looked up at Kaimi. "The villagers, they say I'm cursed. They say I bring bad luck, that I don't belong." Kaimi felt a deep sense of connection to this girl. She remembered the accusations that had been thrown at her mother and the weight of carrying a reputation she didn't deserve. She knew the pain of being outcast, of feeling like you didn't belong anywhere. "They don't know the truth," Kaimi said softly. "They're afraid of what they don't understand." The girl sat beside Kaimi, and the two stared at the stream in silence for a while. Finally, the girl spoke again. "What should I do? Should I keep running?" Kaimi thought for a long time before answering. "I spent years running. I ran from the villagers, from my past, and from the choices I made. But no matter how far you run, the pain stays with you. You can't escape it." The girl looked at her, confused. "Then what can I do?" Kaimi turned to face her, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "You have to face it. You have to face them. The truth will come out eventually, no matter how hard people try to hide it. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to carry this burden forever." The girl nodded slowly, taking in Kaimi's words. She didn't fully understand, but she felt a sense of comfort in Kaimi's presence, as if this woman, who seemed to know so much pain, also knew how to heal from it. As the night grew colder, the girl stood up, ready to return to her village. Before she left, she turned to Kaimi one last time. "Thank you," she said softly. "Will I see you again?" Kaimi smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "Perhaps, but you must find your own path now." The girl nodded and disappeared into the woods, leaving Kaimi alone once again. But this time, Kaimi didn't feel the same sense of loneliness. For the first time in years, she felt a small glimmer of hope, not for herself, but for the future. As the days passed, Kaimi continued her solitary journey, but something inside her had changed. She no longer wandered aimlessly. Instead, she sought out others who, like the young girl, had been cast aside by their villages, accused of crimes they didn't commit, or burdened with curses they didn't deserve. Kaimi became a quiet protector, a guardian of those who had been wronged. She never revealed her full story to anyone, but those she helped knew that she understood their pain. She guided them, not with magic or promises of power, but with wisdom earned from years of suffering and regret. The legend of Kaimi grew, but this time, it wasn't one of fear and curses. Instead, she became known as the protector of the lost, the one who offered a second chance to those who had none. Her name, once whispered in fear, was now spoken with gratitude and reverence. As time went on, fewer and fewer people remembered the tragedies of Asala village. The witches, once feared, had faded into distant memory, and the darkness that had once hung over the village began to lift. But the story of Kaimi, the woman who had faced her demons and found a way to help others, continued to live on. And on quiet nights, when the wind blew gently through the trees, some said they could still hear the soft whispers of her name, carried on the breeze, not as a warning, but as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, redemption is possible, and hope can be found where you least expect it.